He wrote his first story when he was 16. Now he's 83. He's written over 500 short essays, novels, stories, and of course he shows no signs of slowing down. But why should he? After all, he's Bond, Ruskin Bond. Thank you so much for speaking to NDTV.
Thank you for seeing me.
I wanted to start with this new book of yours, which is called Words from the Hills. It's rather different. It's not really a book in the conventional sense. It's more like a treasure map, and everyone can see the clues and pen their own personal journeys, like a diary almost.
Yes, you put it nicely.
Can you tell us a little more about it and the inspiration behind it?
Well, they're actually jottings from my journal or diary, which I keep off and on not a very regular basis, but when I feel like it. And I have to say that the inspiration, if you like, behind it was really the publishers and the artist and the editors who said, Mr. Bond, we're just taking lines from your journal and we're going to make them look nice. So I said, sure, go ahead. And so they made a very pretty book with some lovely watercolors by Gunjan, the artist. And I've said in my little introduction, this is really your book, dear reader, where you can fill in the blanks and put down your own thoughts.
Congratulations on Lone Wolf Dancing, your autobiography, which has won an award at the Bangalore Literary Festival.
Well, that took some time to write.
Yes, and tell me, how honest are you in the book?
I try to be honest. Nobody can be, let's say, completely truthful in the sense of revealing all. You know, no, you're not going to tell the world about, all the terrible things you've done. You would rather give them an impression that you're, not a bad chap after all. But I've tried to be honest. My writing in general is realistic. Most of my short stories and novellas over the years, even my children's books have not been fantasies or wishful thinking. There's a realistic element. So the autobiography follows that trend. I just tell my story, and it's really the story of a writer and his long literary journey.
I read somewhere that you said that, in fact, perhaps the most fictional character is yourself. Do you want to just elaborate on that a little? Because I found that very interesting, from a person who takes a lot from...
True, I guess, in a way. I mean, I suppose I'm who was it, Walter Mitty, who used to dream of having, wonderful adventures and achieving great things. And since I was an imaginative child and still am, and I think I daydream a lot. So in a way, I'm maybe projecting different parts of myself in my stories when I put myself in the first person, as I very often do. And perhaps I change along like a chameleon or a Jekyll and Hyde at times.
So which one is Ruskin Bond?
A bit of both.
A bit of both. I was reading in one of your blogs that you write that you crave of open spaces and how every year, the world is just getting warmer because we seem to be sort of building everywhere. So if there was something that you could say to policymakers or to people, just...
I do say it in my small way that we do need more space and that we are pushing too far and too quickly into our open spaces and into our forests and into our rural areas, into our agricultural areas too, because it's becoming more of an urbanized land, and it has always been really a rural and agricultural land. So the urbanization is understandable in an industrial society or a country that's going industrial at a rapid rate. But but one can still preserve a good deal, I think, and the forests, particularly the verdure, just the grasslands. After all, cattle need grazing grounds, don't they? And it's perhaps a losing proposition, you know, to try and save the countryside.
Tell me another thing that I thought was very interesting, where you said that India is really a land of acceptances. And also, if you were to be born again, you would want to be born as an Indian. But Mr. Bond, when we look today at an India of, let's say, Gaurakshaks or intolerance or forced patriotism, is it still an India you would want to be reborn in? Is this the India you want to be reborn in?
Well, one must always try to remove the intolerance and to let the tolerance overcome the intolerance. But I have to say that in my my 83 years, 80 have been spent in India, and personally, I think it's very. If I look back, I've personally always met with kindness and help, fellowship, and I've not personally, very, very rarely had an experience which I would, you know, felt bad about. So I can't, on a personal level, I would still want to be in India. But I do understand that there are people who do have problems and have difficulties, and I think we must, as a whole, try to see that, take care of our neighbor.
But do you feel that this is different from the India you grew up in, the current situation right now?
It's different in the sense, you see, that everything now comes out into the open. In the 1950s, 60s, early 70s, there was no television. The media was limited to a few newspapers. And a lot that happened across the country in small towns or villages, and sometimes very unpleasant things happened. There were riots, there were, you know, communal disturbance in those, and even individual cases of crime, which did not get reported always. And so a lot happened that we didn't know about. Now we know about everything. Everything's there. I mean, it's not just on television. I mean, everybody's got his
social media
in their pocket.
There was again a very interesting thing I read where you said, keep away with these illiterate TV armies at night. I think that's the word you used for television debates and TV news. Ignorant armies keep you awake. And I thought that was again very interesting.
That's a line, ignorant armies, I think I got that from a poem by Matthew Arnold called Dover Beach. Right. Well, perhaps I was in a bad mood that night. But I end up in a bad mood if I watch most of these TV debates. I do.
One other thing that I read is when you said it is so easy to fall in love with a nurse, the gentle touch that most of them possess. But over the year, you found no nurse really to fall in love with, or were there too many?
I guess it's, after a while you don't want to be nursed.
So falling in love is okay, but
yes,
nothing
all right,
beyond
yes,
that.
but then I think I've no regrets on that point, really. And by and large, I'm a writer without regrets. If I had to lead my life all over again, and there is one particular nurse I might want to have seen more of, but anyway, you've got to take what comes.
Mr. Bond, before we let you go, because we've been talking about that it's an instant age, everything, I'm going to quickly go through some very quick questions that I just,
I'm not good at those, but anyway.
But we'll try, we'll give it a shot. Favorite author?
Favorite author, it changes over the years, very often. I grew up on...
Favorite author right now?
Right now I'm reading a wonderful writer called George Gissing, who nobody's heard of. He was a 19th century writer who was probably the only English novelist of that era who wrote about the working classes.
Okay. Favorite book?
Favorite book? oh gosh, I don't know, maybe The Diary of a Nobody. Funny.
Last film you saw?
The last film I saw. I see them occasionally on... The last film I saw was, I think, oh gosh, what was it? There's so many come on TV, I don't remember them now.
Okay. Favorite film?
Oh, favorite film, perhaps it goes back to Goodbye, Mr. Chips, back in my boyhood.
Any character from any book that you would like to be?
That I'd like to meet. Mr. Pickwick, maybe.
Okay. Favorite line from a book?
Favorite line from a book. What ho! I think Jeeves probably, or Bertie Wooster, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
And Born Again as Ruskin Bond or James Bond?
Bond? Who's James Bond? I've heard of him somewhere.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
You.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.